Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to break down one of the most significant and honestly most misunderstood days in the Catholic calendar, Divine Mercy Sunday. So, have you ever heard of a spiritual get out of jail free card? A complete reset for your soul? Well, that's what this day has been called. But what does that really mean? Is it actually that simple? There's a ton of confusion around this day, even from people who've grown up in the church. So our goal here is pretty simple. We're going to clear things up and explain one of Catholicism's most powerful and, as you're about to see, most accessible promises. So where does all the confusion come from? Well, a lot of it starts with the feast day itself. You'd be surprised. Even parish bulletins sometimes get the details mixed up. See, the central promise of this day often gets confused with something else, specifically something called a plenary indulgence. But they are absolutely not the same thing, and understanding that difference is really the key to the whole thing. All right, to get to the bottom of this, we have to go straight to the source of the promise. It was given in a series of revelations to a Polish nun, Saint Faustina Kowalska, way back in the 1930s. And this right here, this is the absolute core of it. The promise that was written down in her diary is just astonishingly direct. Jesus is recorded as saying that any soul who meets just two conditions, that's confession and communion, will get complete forgiveness of not just their sins, but all the punishment that goes along with them. And you know what theologians call this? A second baptism. And why is that? Well, think about it. The only other time the church offers that level of total spiritual renewal, literally wiping the slate completely clean of everything, is at the sacrament of baptism itself. That's how big a deal this is. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of all that confusion. If this grace is so incredibly powerful, how is it any different from a plenary indulgence? Because that also deals with removing punishment for sin, right? This is the key question. They might sound kind of similar on the surface, but the distinction is massive, especially when you look at what you have to do to receive them. Okay, so let's break this down because this is where it gets really interesting. For the Divine Mercy grace, you see the conditions are just two sacraments, confession and communion. Simple enough. But now look at the conditions for a plenary indulgence. You've got those, plus prayer for the Pope, and then there's that last condition, no attachment to any sin. We're talking even the small, everyday ones. That is an incredibly high bar to clear. Plus, the Divine Mercy grace gets rid of all sin and punishment, while an indulgence only handles the punishment for sins that have already been forgiven. And just to put that no attachment to sin requirement into perspective, there's this incredible story about St. Philip Neri. He was apparently granted a vision where he saw a cathedral packed with thousands of people, all trying to get a plenary indulgence. You know how many actually received it? 2. Just 2 people. It really is that difficult. So here's the bottom line, the most crucial point. The grace promised on Divine Mercy Sunday is not only way more powerful in its effect, wiping out both sin and punishment, but the conditions make it so much more accessible to the average person. Okay, so now that we know what it is, let's get practical. What exactly does a person have to do to receive this incredible grace? And you know what? It's remarkably simple. First, you make a good confession, and this can be done in the days or even a couple weeks leading up to Divine Mercy Sunday. Second, you receive Holy Communion on the day itself. And third, and this is absolutely key, you have to trust. You have to actually want the grace and believe that the promise is real. This is such a critical point. The source material just hammers this home over and over again. Trust isn't just a nice idea or a suggestion. It's the actual vessel that you use to receive the grace. It's not about being perfect. It's about having total confidence in God's mercy. So you have to be asking, why? Why would such an unbelievable gift be made so accessible? Is it some kind of spiritual loophole? Well, the theology behind it points to a much, much deeper purpose. The sources are clear. This isn't about finding an easy way out of trouble. It's a profound invitation. This extraordinary promise is specifically designed to pull people back to the very heart of the Catholic faith, the two foundational sacraments of confession and the Eucharist. It's almost like God is sweetening the pot to get us to come back to these powerful sources of grace. And just look again at the sheer magnitude of this grace. This complete spiritual reset, wiping away all sin and all punishment, is otherwise only offered at baptism. So to attach that same level of grace to receiving the Eucharist on this one particular day, well, it elevates the feast to an absolutely incredible status. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds pretty modern, coming from the 1930s. But the idea of this particular Sunday being special, it goes way, way back. We're talking St. Augustine, one of the great fathers of the ancient church, who called this whole week after Easter the days of mercy and pardon. So when Pope John Paul II made this official in the year 2000, he wasn't really creating something totally new. He was highlighting an ancient tradition for our modern times. And the language used in St. Faustina's diary is incredibly urgent. The promise isn't just framed as a nice gift, it's presented as a critical lifeline, a last hope of salvation, urging humanity to turn back to God's mercy before what the diary calls the coming day of justice. So this is way more than just some obscure theological detail. The source presents it as an incredible, urgent gift, a last hope. And whether you're a person of faith or you're just exploring these ideas, it really leaves us all with a powerful question to think about. What does the concept of a complete spiritual reset, a total clean slate, really mean to you?